I'm here with Richard Stout today to talk about version 11, which I know is the top of everybody's minds. Just about 2 years ago today, 2 years and a month, Stout and I did a webinar where we talked about XI.
Yep.
At the time, we were in the middle of a lot of version 10 upgrades, and we asked the question, why were we talking about XI? And we said, you know, it's important sometimes to know what's on the horizon as you plan. And that horizon is basically here. We're on the other side of a lot of those upgrades. And now we're starting to plan the path forward. A lot of customers are. And so we wanted to offer, once again, you know, our take on what these solutions and developments mean to the market and our customers. And we hope you will find this useful information.
Yeah, certainly a more informed take now that the software has been released.
Well, we didn't get much wrong back then, so
it turns
very
out
prescient.
We did a pretty good job.
Had a little free time and want to know what we said 2 years ago. It's out on YouTube somewhere, I'm sure. So, you know, this is our basic agenda. We want to talk high level about, you know, what this means, you know, in terms of solution, naming conventions, platforms, etc. Then we'll talk about our opinion on what the roadmap and planning should look like, in our opinion, for a customer that's currently running Lawson solutions. And we're going to talk about three components: the technology, the HCM Cloud Suite, and obviously the FSM Cloud Suite. I will point out that when we go through a lot of these things, there are webinars that dive into deeper detail on many of the slides that we're going to cover today.
Sure. Interestingly
enough. So if you're interested in anything, go to our YouTube channel and you can find more information. Before we get started, a couple things. One is our about us. I think that, you know, in rethinking our message a little bit, what's important for me and for Stout, for everyone else to know, is that we are nice people, and we love customers, and we work really hard to try to keep them as best we can.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So we're just out there doing the best we can. All right. And then second, the fine print. It turns out, believe this or not, that we are not Infor.
That's right.
We are not Infor. So everything we say here does not represent Infor in any way. This is basically our observations and what we've been able to consume and experience.
Yeah, it's our take and our analysis. We might project where we think Infor is going. That doesn't necessarily mean we're right.
But we probably are.
We probably are.
So let's go back to our old XI equals 11 slide, since things have, nomenclature has changed.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about today is essentially the next generation of Lawson. And this next generation is built on a technology that's been developing for about 10 years now, that we're going to talk about a little bit. But it is different from old Lawson or LSF in that it's object-oriented, not flat file. Everything is role-based in terms of navigation and information. And it's extensible, meaning it's not meant for you to customize the underlying code.
Right.
All things we'll talk about.
But it is meant for you to build upon the underlying code.
It is.
To adapt the solution for your particular needs. Take advantage of everything that's available to you and make it your own.
So we also know that the term Lawson is out and has been on the way out pretty much since Infor acquired Lawson. But we also know that the term 11 is out too. So even though we're using it as a common term in the market, it is officially now two solutions. What you used to know as Lawson is Cloud Suite, FSM, Cloud Suite, HCM. You could call this the next generation of Lawson.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully for the rest of the presentation, we'll consistently use the correct product name.
Yeah.
Cloud Suite Financials and Supply Management is what was Lawson's FinPro Suites. Cloud Suite HCM is Global HR. And it's important to know that the name Cloud Suite doesn't mean it's only available in the cloud. This software can be deployed on-premise as well as in the cloud. It's still called Cloud Suite even if you're running it on-premise.
And so, you know, we like to throw jokes on how it's called Cloud Suite because it's something that sounds really cool. But to be fair, there's some underlying principles behind these cloud concepts that define the software even when it's on-premise. Because when you think about software that is in the SaaS model, it does not come compartmentalized or modularized. This is a full package. And Infor's overall direction is to not have something that has a million different iterations out there with different patch levels and so forth, but something that is consistent across the board to which small updates are made.
Yeah.
So this is the nomenclature is a step in that direction. It's not an accident.
Right. I mean, removing the version number from the name because the model is moving away from big major version upgrades that you do every couple of years and require a lot of time and effort and testing and a big bang implementation. It's moving towards smaller, more nimble updates that can be easily absorbed by the user base. It's the model is moving towards the entire customer base running basically the same applications and the same technology, not a million different deployment configurations with different combinations of databases, operating systems, and product sets all working together. So all that's going to lend itself to a more consistent, better performing, more stable solution for Infor customers.
So not to disrupt the flow, but I think we have an early question already. I think it's worth addressing.
Sure.
And that is, has Infor announced the sunsetting of version 10?
As far as I know, they have not announced the sunset of version 10, and I would expect that you'll get a good 5 years at least on version 10 at this point.
Thank you.
Right, and I want to add to that, and obviously I want to not interrupt the flow, but to me, the driving force to go to Cloud Suite, FSM and HCM, is all the advancement in the solution. It's different than going to 10. I don't think that end of support is going to be the main driver. But for whatever it's worth, I think that 10 has a lot of life left in it.
Absolutely.
So let's get going. So originally here about the platform, when I first drafted this slide, it talked about Landmark, but Stout informed me there's something called iOS.
Yeah.
What is iOS?
iOS, Infor Operating System. I mean,
A very original name.
Yes. I feel like I've heard that acronym before. Can't put my finger on it. But this is basically the thing that you may have also heard referred to as the XI technology platform. It's Landmark along with a set of other tools and technologies that all come together to make the base upon which the FSM and HCM applications are built. We have Landmark, our application server, IPA, Infor Process Automation, our workflow engine, which is core to all of these solutions. Mingle, our web-based graphical user interface, which has evolved into a lot more than just a frame around the applications.
I think that Mingle today is sort of known as a portal replacement front end. But when you say Mingle here, what you're talking about is a collaborative tool that allows people to message each other information and reports to drive towards resolution. So it's more akin to what Infor has shown us as part of their vision than what's currently on a lot of 10x platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like the notification capabilities in Mingle are one of the most underplayed aspects that make that a very valuable system, because really, it's the 21st century. We're not an email-driven culture anymore, and the previous generation of software was based around email as the main mechanism for getting people's attention.
Screen print, email.
Yeah.
Now you can transfer not only the message, but the data set that you're looking at as part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd much rather manage a list of notifications and work items in a web-based application than mixed in to my Outlook inbox. But enough about Mingle. Just rounding out the platform here, we have Ion, which is our enterprise service bus. That's actually the technology that powers all of this Mingle notifications. It's also a great middleware platform and interface engine. We have Infor BI, which is our analytics system. and Infor Document Management, which is an image document repository.
So one of the things we're going to talk about is how these things have come together. For example, in Infor BI to leverage the embedded analytic cubes that are in FSM. And the other thing that you mentioned is that what's real attractive to you, is the completeness of this, how it encompasses so many different parts of what used to be a heavily multi-application solution.
Absolutely. I'm sure that the Infor application developers found it very beneficial knowing that every one of their customer base is going to have all of these tools available as part of their overall solution. And it's certainly something that we as business and process improvement consultants will find very valuable too. Think back to just a few years ago when we're trying to solve a business challenge and thinking, brainstorming some possible solutions and thinking, well, can we do that with a flow? I'd like to bring in a process flow to sort of help smooth things out and keep things running there. And we want to get some information in front of people, so I'd love to bring in a smart notification as well and sort of build an overall solution using those. But hey, not every one of our customers had process flow. Not every one of our customers had LBI in order to do that smart note. And looking at a small process improvement initiative, usually there
doesn't justify
you're not going to do an entire LBI purchase and implementation just to add in one smart note. So knowing that we have this massive tool set to take advantage of is
unshackled.
Yes, absolutely unshackled. Free of constraints. Basically, it gives us the freedom to really. We're going to do some really cool stuff.
I'm excited. So now that we've covered the platform, we can talk about Landmark, which is the
application server.
Of course, the application server.
Landmark's the application server. Many of you are familiar with it because
it's been around a long time.
Because it's been out a while, and the application you're probably familiar with is the workflow engine, IPA, right? IPA is a core component of Landmark, but Landmark is basically our application server that runs programs written in LPL, Lawson pattern language. This is a language.
Landmark pattern language, pretty sure.
Landmark pattern language. Yeah. Okay.
We'll agree to disagree. Okay.
So that's analogous to 4GL,
okay,
right?
yeah.
It's the code that the applications are written in. What we love about Landmark is it was built from the ground up to offer customers a way to easily configure and extend their applications without modifying the Infor delivered application code, which means we can effectively do customizations and have those customizations gracefully work through application updates. We don't have to re-engineer our customizations every time Infor releases a new version of the apps.
So we do have a quick question here. We'll just take it, right?
Sure.
Is Smart Office compatible with version 11? And I think that, the short answer is no. Smart Office is designed to work with LSF, and now we're talking about Landmark. And I think one of the great things about v11 is we're going back to a consolidated platform, whatever you call it, consolidated platform, application server, whatever it is. There'll be a single front end again.
Right, and that front end is definitely web-based. That's the direction here. Smart Office is a thick client for the COBOL-based applications. They did not bring Smart Office over to the LPL-based applications. We have Rich Client over there, which looks and feels a lot like Smart Office, but even Rich Client is being left behind as the primary user interface for end users. Why? Because of the advent of HTML5. Smart Office was created at a time when many customers were using Internet Explorer 6 or Internet Explorer 7 to access Portal, and you just couldn't do a lot of the dynamic stuff that you can do in a user interface through the web at that time. Now you can with HTML5.
And it makes a lot of sense because you don't have to maintain a client-side application. It's just a browser.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about the applications themselves between what we are familiar with the last 20 years or 40, I guess, Lawson, and with Cloud Suite. You know, what's different? So one really big thing, and we'll show some screenshots throughout here, is the navigation is substantially different. It's a complete break from where Lawson was. And it's interesting because we've gone away from form transfers and screen names to more dashboard-based, role-based, intuitive type.
Home pages and landing pages are the main tools of navigating around the application, which is how we are used to navigating any other website out there on the consumer side.
And think Amazon. And when you go to Amazon, you never think, oh, this form name that I want to go to is such, and I'm going to type it in. You just search or click on what you want, and you move through the process.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon has a hierarchical menu. You can try to get into it if you want, but it's certainly not the main way you move around.
It's not the main way, and so does Cloud Suite. It has a hierarchical menu as well. Then we have this concept of effective dating, which basically has many layers, but in essence, there's two of them that matter. One is that you can future date things that you want to make available, and this applies all across the application. But say you want to make an account available, the next fiscal year, you can do that. You can, as of, search for things and see what they were at a certain date because of this information. And basically, anywhere in the application that you do anything, edit anything at all, it stores that change.
Yes.
And you get used to just being able to right-click and see, Richard Stout changed this field on August 9th. It's just that information is there. There's no flags to set or anything.
Exactly. Auditing in the Lawson applications feels like a bolt-on, feels like something that was added after the fact. Auditing is core here. You can't do anything without auditing in Cloud Suite.
And we're not here to knock Lawson. We're just pointing out the differences.
Right, exactly.
There's also some significant flexibility in terms of organizational structures in HR and GL. And it's not just flexibility in construction, it's flexibility in having different hierarchical matrices for different purposes. And all that's very, very, very useful. And obviously there's embedded analytics that we're going to talk about a little bit. So you no longer have processes or need processes to take data out of the system and transform it and put it into some other data warehouse. It's embedded right there. Right. And that allows some really cool stuff, not just the real time, it allows those cubes to be designed based on your GL structure, right? What you want to report on. And it allows you to empower users to do more ad hoc stuff.
Yeah, because
and not be totally supported.
You don't need to expose users to the guts of the system. It's hard to learn the Lawson table structure. It's not intuitive, but when you're giving your users access to cubes that were designed from the ground up to make it easy to pull data out of the system and relate data and report on data, that really empowers the end user in a way that nothing has before in terms of reporting.
So we are going to take a look at that in a little bit. Let's talk about what's similar, because I think this is an important thing to think about. Is this isn't a totally different system. Pretty much all transactional processes are exactly the same. We did a presentation earlier with Infor. It was an overview of FSM Cloud Suite, and you still got handhelds, and you still got PO lines and PO cost messages.
You still receive a purchase order.
Still receive a purchase order. But even like the PO cost messages, things that are specific to how Lawson operates. IPA is obviously the same. That runs on the same platform.
Sure.
And I don't know if we didn't address it when we were talking about Landmark, but yes, it's called Cloud Suite. Cloud Suite runs on Landmark 11, which also can run your Landmark applications today that are compatible with 10. Not to confuse anything, but it's the same technology.
Right.
And so pretty much everything else is the same.
Essentially, the version of IPA that is part of Cloud Suite Financials, Cloud Suite HCM, that version is available to you today as a Lawson 10 customer.
So let's talk a little bit about a little bit deeper here, and again, we're going to go more into all these. So FSM versus FinPro, they've added an enterprise group, which is a higher level than a company, and I think that helps in multiple ways, right? That creates a grouping around which you can create easy security that is pervasive through the system. Because the global ledger is more flexible, it replaces many of the sub-ledger modules that would allow you to get around other reporting needs and requirements. It's basically all consolidated with great flexibility. There's a project ledger that replaces what we knew as activities, and pretty much all the other FinPro modules are represented in I was going to say version 11, in FSM Cloud Suite.
Right.
I'm working on it. Assets, AR, billing, lease management, AP, PO, they're all in there. And all these things that we're so familiar with, the terms start becoming very familiar. All the landmark applications, so we're talking contract management, we're talking AP automation, those are now all part of the core, right?
Yes.
Because they're on the same platform. And then obviously the reporting is completely replaced. So that is different.
Right. Yeah. The reporting tools that come within the application. Previously, RW100 is the first thing that comes to mind, as it's written in the same language as the rest of your application. There is no path forward for that. There is no direct replacement. Instead, we have our embedded analytics powered by Infor BI.
Right, I want to talk about that too. So HCM versus HR payroll, well, we know that global HR replaces S3 HR and personal actions. We know that benefits and absence have been landmark, and they've been GA for over a year and a half. And we know that they're investing heavily in moving payroll. It's basically the last remaining module, and it's betaing later this year. Most of the new and improved functionalities in GHR, though we're going to look at some of the stuff that benefits 11 offers that looks really good. And then obviously it gives you access to all their integrated talent modules, of which there are several. So before we dive into all these, I just want to express that to me, this is such a unique opportunity, right? Because it's greatly improved software, but it still shares the same DNA that Lawson does.
Yeah.
So it's this very unique opportunity where you can leverage those 15, 20 years of intellectual capital your organization has built up in Lawson across the entire organization, in finance, in HR, and I'm talking, controllers, I'm talking your report developers, in IT. You can leverage all this as you transition to Cloud Suite.
Right.
And I think that's one of the big gaps that most ERP implementations suffer from, is you're fully dependent on consultants to predict how the software will work for you, because you don't internally have that expertise. And you spend a lot of years building it up, both internally and hiring people that are familiar with it. Here you have an opportunity to leverage all that knowledge, right? Transitioning to Cloud Suite is not losing that. It's getting the opportunity to restructure your general ledger without the constraints you had in Lawson, and with all the experiences you've had trying to get information and reporting. Same with HR.
Yeah.
I think there's also this nice thing where you can do this in a series of small projects, right? This doesn't have to be completely disruptive to your organization. You transition onto 11, you plan it out right, and this can be a easily digestible, continuous improvement for your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we dive into that roadmap of how do we get from here to a fully Cloud Suite Financial and HCM future, I think it's important to point out that Cloud Suite Financials and Supply Management, Global HR, these are the next generation solutions of the Lawson system. This is not software that Infor acquired from somewhere else and put a label on it.
Right, that's important, yeah.
This is software that was written and created by people who have been working in Lawson for years.
20 years.
Yeah, for many years. So
based on their experiences.
Exactly, the design was informed by product managers and implementation consultants, people who have been out there and seen how customers use Lawson. And what are some of the biggest challenges, and how can those challenges be removed in the next generation system?
So I did mean to mention that I have a friend. I don't know if I mentioned that I have a friend.
Oh, who's
I'm
your
excited.
friend?
I have a friend. I have a friend, and actually he's going to get married.
Oh.
He's engaged to get married. Yeah, he's getting married at the end of the year.
Well, congratulations.
And I'm excited for him. And and he's looking to relocate. So he's going to move.
Okay.
I think, Tampa sounds real nice. Maybe they're
Yeah.
looking there. But as part of the move, he's also going to get a new job.
Wow.
So he's looking for different positions, and his future wife is she's pregnant with twins, and they're expecting right at the end of the year as
double
well. Yeah, that's yeah. And so, but the interesting thing is he really wants to go to law school, so he's looking at wherever he moves, where are schools that he can go to law school at night with his new job and his 2 kids and his newly minted wife. And it sounds like a whole lifetime of experiences that he's consolidating into one single thing. And
Yeah,
should I advise him otherwise, you think, or say, hey, maybe try one step at a time?
That sounds like a lot of stress. They say that any one of those events can become one of the most stressful things in your life. I can't imagine taking on all of that change at once.
I can't imagine taking all that change on at once either. And so I think that the way to do it is to have a roadmap. And it's no different with the transition to Cloud Suite. Is you don't have to take all these pieces on at once. You can look at these as separate projects that can be running different parts of the organization consecutively and semi-parallel. And if we're looking at this holistically from a customer that is on version 9 or 10 and running 3 suites, or version 10 and running 3 suites and hasn't made these moves, this is sort of how we might suggest approaching this.
Yeah.
And the very first thing we would look at is getting on Landmark 11, which will run any Landmark applications you have today and also give you access to IPA 11 that we're going to look at. Then we will look at these HCM modules. This really nice thing that you can do these modularized, and you can make that move to global HR, plan that out. That obviously has a bigger impact than some of the others. And then you can pick and choose, do you want to move benefits that has some key advantages and it's pretty easy once you have GHR set up? Do you want to take advantage of some of the talent modules, plan those out? Do you want to take advantage of some of the global HR sub-modules, which are very fleshed out? And maybe you want to do absence then or wait till payroll. Then look at sort of the FSM Cloud Suite, which you have to do whole, but we kind of see there being like 3 major parts to that project that don't exactly have the same footprints of resources in the organization. So I think it's important to understand that. And then doing payroll at the end and having your consolidated system.
Yeah. So let's dig in. Let's talk
dig
about
in.
talk about the first point on our roadmap.
All right.
Landmark 11.
I love it when Stolfus makes a cameo.
Yeah. So Landmark version 11 is out and available for Lawson 10 customers. The prerequisite for upgrading to Landmark 11 is being on the latest environment version. That's 10.09. Here's the great news. The Landmark 11 upgrade is an in-place upgrade.
It's an in-place upgrade. Wow. Yeah.
So you can just simply apply the updates to Grid and Landmark Runtime to your existing server, and that'll get you the cool new web-based interface, the HTML5 user interface. A couple other cool features. You've got the ability to scale out your Landmark application servers. You can have multiple servers all working together for performance, horizontal scaling. You've got that REST API layer, which is a web integration layer that comes over all of the business classes for all of the applications that you're running on the platform. And of course, you've got IPA version 11.
You didn't think we were going to have a presentation with Stat and no IPA, did you?
Yeah. So
it's the price we pay.
yeah. Let me tell you about what's new with IPA 11.
One second, I do have a question. So Landmark 11, that obviously runs on Windows because that's the default platform. Does it run on anything else, or is it just Windows as far as we know?
At this time, we have compatibility for Windows and we have compatibility for AIX.
Okay. We're not predicting any compatibility for iSeries.
No. We're quite certain there's not a future for the iSeries operating system with this platform. Infor's direction is to move, obviously, a cloud-based architecture, which the iSeries is pretty much the opposite of. So think virtualization, Amazon hosting. The other direction the Infor is moving in is open source. I would say if there's another operating system on the horizon, it's going to be Linux.
Linux, yep. All right, cool. So let's talk about IPA 11.
Cool. So IPA 11, this is where all the good stuff is coming out, right? The Infor Process Automation continues to be an actively developed product. There's enhancements and additions to IPA coming out all the time, but those enhancements are showing up in version 11 only. If you're on Landmark 10, you've got a great workflow engine, but not one that you're going to see a lot of change to. Some of the cool stuff with IPA 11, we have a great web administrative interface, much better than the web-based admin interface that's available over on the Landmark 10 side. You've got a couple of new ways to interact with people and start flows, including email and text message. There's even an inbound email and inbound text message channel, which will allow you to initiate flows based upon the server.
Text message.
Yeah. The server receiving a text message, and then
This is in anticipation of what you were saying was the age of emails dying down.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we have a bunch of new nodes, and if you want to hear more about that, please check out our presentation on Friday. Jeremy and I are gonna dig into what's next for IPA, and we'll just leave you with this one maybe teaser on the subject is a picture of the new IPA 11's web-based process designer.
Wow.
You can even see what a flow's doing without having to fire up the Infor Process Designer.
Nice. So that's obviously low-hanging fruit. There are some prerequisites to get there, but as you said, it's an in-place upgrade.
Mm-hmm. And that brings the technology platform, at least one element of the technology platform for Cloud Suite Financials into your Lawson solution today.
Yeah, and this IPA 11 is the same IPA that powers Lawson 10, the Landmark applications that run with Lawson 10, and Cloud Suite. It's a universal tool that won't change. So you can get that, you can get familiar with that. Mm-hmm. You can even start migrating some interfaces to IPA, which we're gonna talk about to help you later on. So then we will look at Global HR. Global HR is obviously, it's a very mature product, and it's really cool that you can run any of these Landmark HCM applications in parallel with S3. So you have the opportunity here to modularize, right? To not have the twins at once, right?
Yeah. It's the easy entry point.
Totally.
To getting your first real business applications on the Cloud Suite platform.
So I think that we saw yesterday some presentations on organizational structures in GHR, and it's obviously it's very powerful and it's very flexible. It doesn't force you to shoehorn your organizational structure into what S3 had available, and it lets you have sort of different matrices for different things like supervisors and so forth. The important thing is to take a little time to plan it out, right? Because now that you've shoehorned everything into S3, sort of breaking it out takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of executive support, right? Mm-hmm. You gotta map it out, try to understand how the organization is really working so that you can have something that's reflective of that and not something that's reflective of what the system forced you into. Right. We have seen people try to slam in their S3 into GHR, and it's a real shame. It gets very complicated.
Yeah, a like-for-like migration never really allows you to unlock some of the potential for the rest of the application.
Absolutely. But you do get, even in a like-for-like, you do get the as-of dating, which is super helpful. Mm-hmm. You get the proxy manager functionality, which is super helpful. And this new organization, whether you shoehorn or not, has some extreme flexibility, which I'm going to show you a sample of in a second. But there are also things that you can start already, like right now, like before you even signed up to do the project, you can start defining jobs and positions, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you haven't defined well in S3, maybe you don't. You can clarify these reporting structures that'll help you understand what your organization should look like, and you can document qualifications, which are pretty important throughout the entire landmark HCM applications. So, one of the things that was well received yesterday in our presentation was the fact that in global HR, you can move organizational units, right? So, my understanding, this is a lot of work in S3, and this happens often, both in terms of we need to move an organizational unit, or we want to understand what it might look like if we move an organizational unit. And here in GHR, essentially, there's just a tool to move it. So you could move something from where it sits currently. Right here we have IT under Europe, and when you when you change where it moves to, everything underneath it just moves automatically and remaps, which is, my understanding, is pretty cool because we got a lot of wows.
Yeah.
But it takes a little bit of effort to get there, but once you get there, there's going to be a lot of time savings. The other thing that global HR is a nice entry point into is the console.
Yeah, Configuration Console. Configuration Console, this is our graphical tool that we can use to create LPL, Lawson Pattern Language. Sorry, Landmark Pattern Language.
Well, agree to disagree, right? So is this a tool for users like myself, right? You don't have to be a techie to use this.
Well,
Semi-techie.
it certainly helps to have a little bit of a techie mindset, but yeah, some organizations have given users a lot of freedom to build out personalizations, which is like a configuration, but it only applies to one person using this tool. Other organizations want their configurations to be owned, managed centrally within IT. It's the same type of
debate, yeah.
The same type of paradigm choice that we've had for a long time.
Exists in all organizations. So
Yeah.
with this LPL, I've been saying it's Java, but I've been told that it is not Java.
True story. It's not Java. There's been a lot of misconception there because we all know that Landmark that's based on Java, right? Yeah, but Landmark.
I've been spreading those misconceptions apparently. Yeah.
Landmark itself, has Java code. The Grid, which is sort of under the scenes of Landmark Runtime, is a Java application server. But the language that the language that Cloud Suite Financials is written in, the language that Global HR is written in, LPL, really bears no resemblance to Java at all. And as we can see in this screenshot here, it's not intimidating at all. It's in plain English, and you can read this and have a pretty good idea of what it means and what it's doing.
All right. So what can I do with this configuration console?
There's a lot of stuff we can do with it, but essentially what it comes down to is changing the look of the application, rearranging what we're seeing on the screen, the presentation, similar to how we used to do it in Design Studio.
Yeah, okay.
What we can also change the way the application works.
That might have been something we might have done with some of us with 4GL in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I say change the way the application works, I mean changing the business logic or the fields that we're tracking, even potentially adding new business classes, i.e. tables, to build out a whole new functionality.
Awesome. So GHR is a nice entry point into the applications, into the Landmark based applications. It can run in parallel with your S3. You can take that modularized, and once you have that, you can take advantage of some of these goodies that are in global HR. Mm-hmm. Some of these things have representations over on the S3 side, but it's not the same kind of robust functionality. In the S3, this is more about just sort of some tracking fields that are out there for employee relations and so forth. And in global HR, these are full-on modules. And once you're on GHR, these are projects that the HR team can mostly build out, and position budgeting. Sometimes you have some financials people involved, but they're not IT driven. The application's there, mm-hmm. People have access, they can use configuration console or put in those requests. These can be just sort of small, ongoing projects to improve your organization and take advantage of software that you have. The next thing we look at in that modernization is benefits. So there's some significant improvements in benefits. On a high level, it can leverage a lot of the process automation that's already built into global HR. So when we look at things like you have a part-timer going full-time, it automatically set them up for the benefits for which they qualify for it. It doesn't need to happen manually. So let's say you have an organization where you have to be employed for 90 days before you're eligible for 401k. All that stuff can happen automatically. Somebody doesn't have to keep track of that. And there's some significant improvements in terms of open enrollment. There's a lot of increased flexibility in terms of configuration. It's a lot more intuitive. We have, as a company, over the years, done a lot of programming work in ESS, to change how some of this stuff works and how it's organized, to embed instructions, which is totally easy to do now, and you can put in hyperlinks. But also things like when you have a high deductible plan as an option, and you have an HSA that's dependent on that, or you have certain options that are dependent on you having dependents, all that stuff can be programmed in. And when you look at the look of something like this, what the end user sees is just a lot more natural and intuitive. You can see to the left, those are all the screens that have been completed that have the green check mark. And if they were completed in error in some way where I chose, I don't know, employee and children, but I don't have any children dependents, that would be in red. Some could be in yellow. And importantly, you can store this in draft form, right? So
I can start my open enrollment, maybe run into some questions I need to figure out, talk to my family
talk to my family.
and come back at a later time and save the information I put in.
So absolutely. And what's also really cool about it is that, all this is like delivered stuff, right? It's got this graphical representation and many others that show you where your total group stands in terms of open enrollment, and you can easily drill down into the folks that are drafted or not started, and you can send follow-up messages from there. It's just a lot easier to manage. Something like this, once you have GHR, it's easy to implement. It becomes low-hanging fruit, basically, and it can save you a lot of time that is currently spent in the organization doing these tasks. So, just like with global HR, every time a VP comes over and says, I want to change this org structure, I want to see what it looks like, you've now made that a matter of seconds. Your open enrollment, you've reduced a significant amount of time too. So, and the ongoing management of benefits and assignment of benefits, and you've automated a lot of those pieces. So again, a series of improvements that don't all have to be at once.
Well, if our HR team isn't buried in all the tedious manual work to power an open enrollment, what do you think they should work on?
I think they should work on continuing to improve the operations. And again, once you are on this global HR platform, you basically have the ability to replace a bunch of point solutions with integrated ones. I think that it's going to be case by case what makes sense and when. I think it's going to depend on what are you running today and how happy people are with it. Obviously there's different levels of integrations required for all these, and it's really nice to be able to share things like qualifications and competencies across the board. When you look at something like talent acquisition, there's an opportunity to implement transition management onboarding, which is usually a lot of work, either manual or interfaced, that is just delivered. But again, are you really happy? If they're really happy with that system, or maybe you don't want to change that now. Is it manual? You probably do. Are you paying a lot of money? Are you sunsetting? I feel like this is very much a case by case, where it gets roadmap, based on needs. But again, the opportunity at that point is there, and each of these projects is a sub project that is not massively disruptive to the organization or require massive amounts of IT support. Most of them are HR driven. So. And then towards the end, you can decide, absence management is available on Landmark, so that's something you can do. It is tied a little closer to payroll, so maybe you want to wait till you do payroll, or maybe you want to do it now. Again, you can split or not. When you look at payroll, I'd say the most compelling reason to move payroll to Landmark is to consolidate everything on Landmark, right? So if you're running FinPro today, and a lot of people that are running payroll, or at least running financials, then that compelling reason isn't there, because you're still running an S3 unless you did the whole thing Big Bang. So you might as well wait until you do FSM, and then move payroll and give it a chance to be a little bit more worked out. You're not going to get the same level of benefits out of payroll. That's more of a transactional process that's just running, and it is pretty integrated to financials. So, but again, case by case, you can make that decision, which which then brings us into our third component, which is FSM. Now, FSM, you cannot modularize, right? You can't say, I'm going to do the GL and run everything else in parallel. But there's really sort of three major parts to it in our view. The first is this project is ultimately really about leveraging that GL structure. There's a lot of goodies in it. It's much improved. You could not take advantage of that and just move. But it seems like a missed opportunity. 20 years is a good time to revisit how your GL works. We redid our chart of accounts and department structure last year. Spent a lot of time planning it before we executed it. And I think it's something similar that everybody should look at, is do that first. Then you have the actual change, right? Which is going to be more of a change management effort because a lot of processes won't change that much for people, but you want to get buy-in, you want to do user acceptance testing and so forth. And then there's sort of that continuous improvement. Now that you have this powerful application with solid BI, you want to incorporate other data into it and so forth. So let's look at those three things. With the GL structure, I mean, this is really ultimately about understanding your reporting needs and GL constraints. There are a lot of organizations that we've talked to over the years that have felt that their chart was not set up right because the symptoms are, I have a lot of reporting solutions. It takes me a long time to get the data that I want. Every single time I want to change it, people have to go back and like recalibrate that data or redo reports, and it feels like maybe I have something wrong. But oftentimes what we find is it's never an opportune time to redo your GL in Lawson. This is it. And sometimes you've been governed by the constraints that the system had of, accounting unit structure and so forth. So I think the people that really understand that are going to be probably like your, director of finance, your comptroller, whoever's in charge of reporting. I would start from the basis of what are we trying to get out of this system? What are we putting in a decision support system? What are we putting in a data warehouse? Can we just have that data warehouse be our default financial system and have everything in real time? And you can take your time with this. You can do like we're doing, play with a sandbox, see what works, see what doesn't. Think about it. It's really a financials driven project, right? And it takes some time there, but I think this is an investment you're making for the next 25 years. This is where I would spend the time and make sure you do it right. And
as an example of a sort of a place to look to say how might we set this up differently in Cloud Suite Financials, do you have anything in your GL structure that uses smart numbering today?
Right, great example.
Yeah, maybe you have the first three digits of your accounting unit are the process level.
Yep.
You know that, and your custom reports have taken an account into that logic. But the Lawson application really isn't aware of that and doesn't take advantage of that relationship. Right here, this is our Cloud Suite Financial Sandbox. We're showing the
some limited dimensions. I have a goal of using all
setup.
14, but we're not there yet. But what he's talking about is basically splitting an accounting unit that has two definitions so that you have less repetition. And how much easier would that be for reporting when you can just select your three-digit lead-in that represented something and not just be like find this range or find the left three digits, or build in code.
We're making the solution aware that we have a hierarchical relationship between these two elements, and it can take advantage of that, and we see that throughout all the analytics.
Now, within all those, there's also the relationships that are in there. So think of GL20 on steroids, right? Because it's not just accounting unit now; it's potentially account, that extra level accounting unit, whatever you have, and all the cross relationships in between. Fortunately, the way this is set up is you can build these rules that will programmatically just build out all the details behind it. So you can say, I want everything in my ledger to be valid for all cost centers, and it'll build out all those combinations. Or you can use exception-based, so you build everything out and then take the exceptions out. And at the end of the day, this is a transaction level, what we call GL40, but journal entry. And you can see where you're selecting that what we have is exactly what we've set up. And if we had 14, we'd have 14 on the screen. and they would be labeled exactly what we call them. So it's kind of cool, right? The system just sort of is dynamic according to what you build. And likewise, how could I forget, whatever you select here, the data cubes build as, that's what the dimensions are.
Yeah.
It's basically, for lack of a better term, indexing fields that make it easy to query data based on these elements, which is something we're going to get a chance to see
And
here
I
in a
think
minute.
there's some value into having the application use your organization's terminology, right? I mean, you don't necessarily refer to a department as an accounting unit, but the staff in your organization know what things are called when they're labeled as such in the system. It makes it easier
And match
for everybody
everything
to
else.
understand.
So the second part of this, I think, is the actual deployment. And again, just most business processes are going to operate exactly the same. I mean, the folks that are running, working with handhelds, doing receiving and delivery, they won't notice the difference at all.
Yeah.
And some of the forms are going to look different and so forth. But when you look at PO cost messages, still exist. It's still sort of the same functionality that's underlying it. So it's really about change management. It's getting people used to that look, that feel, substantial focus on user acceptance testing, getting that buy-in, delivering end user training so people feel like they're supported, and taking the time to show them, hey, this is why this is better, and you want to rethink some of the things that you're doing. The flip side of that is there is a lot of IT work here because you are migrating platforms, so all the RISE components, they're not going to migrate over in any way, shape, or form. So let's tackle the first one first. And this is an example of what we call PO20, purchase order and purchase order detail. It's not limited by 5 fields because somebody designed that in a green screen 10 years ago. It's however many lines you want. You want to show 10, you want to show 100. So it's more dynamic, but it's still conceptually sort of the same thing. But even more than that, the person working this would start from a dashboard that would show them unreleased POs, would show them requisitions waiting to be converted. Here's an example of just a typical page that a requester might look at.
This is the landing page.
Here's my punch-out vendors. Here's my open recs. Here's the things that I've recently searched for. Here's what needs approval. Here's what's rejected. So there's a little bit of a conceptual change here that we're going to talk about here in a second. On the flip side, none of your customizations are gonna migrate over. And nor should they.
No, there's not a path for converting 4GL to LPL, and we don't think that's the right approach anyway. A lot of customers, we've worked with a lot of customers that have done a platform change with their Lawson solution. Maybe they moved to the Infor Cloud, or they moved from a Unix platform on-premise to a Windows platform on-premise, and that required a lot of migrating scripts and customizations, what have you. We always recommend taking that time to go through and document, why do we have these pieces, what purpose do they serve, do we need to continue to maintain them. I understand that that's not always possible for an organization that needs to rapidly move to another platform. Maybe their timeline is being forced by other factors. So sometimes it makes sense to just
rebuild everything.
Let's just throw some developers at it and take everything we have and convert it over. That's not even an option here, moving Cloud Suite Financials.
It's not, but if you think about why there's a reason behind every customization, and so some customers, it's been a long time since they did them. They have an accumulation, and there isn't a documented this is the gap this customization is filling. You should do that, and if you have that, then you're not looking at your customizations and saying where they fit. You're looking at your gaps and saying, do they still exist?
Right.
And that's really what should be driving it.
In our design phase, can we meet those gaps with a new application design?
Totally. That's something you can get started right away. All the interfaces will obviously have to be either repointed or rebuilt because, again, it's a new platform. However, any interface you have on IPA will be pretty easy, right? Because it'll be compatible and you're just switching where it's calling from. You can also leverage Ion, and you can also use third-party third-party tools, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So if we look at what the interface technologies are that are available for our Landmark platform, as I mentioned, Landmark 11 introduces a REST API layer over top of every business class. That's a standard web integration technology that many other applications out there support. It's also very popular with third-party interface engines. Of course, we have Ion, a very powerful enterprise service bus that we can use to connect to other systems. And yeah, as you mentioned, if you have interfaces that are built in IPA today, well, you're halfway there. Because assuming the other system that you're integrating with isn't changing as part of this, you've already got that side of the interface built and working. So it's just a matter of swapping out your Lawson transactions with Landmark transactions and remapping those data elements over to the new data model.
So customizations, think of as gaps. Interfaces are actually the one place we got one-to-one. And reports, a total paradigm change, right? Yeah. So with reports, your dispersed PDFs via email, they're not going to migrate, but my argument is that you shouldn't recreate those because that's just a workaround for system limitations. And I know that there's going to be resistance to change. Don't take my stapler.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, again, going back to that Amazon, if I want to see information on an order historically, I don't send an email to Amazon and say, send me a PDF with all my orders historically. It's all sort of dynamic, right?
Yeah, I can just go in and take a look, and I can see the data on screen. I can interact with it. And if I need a PDF, I can easily export it or print it out to save as a PDF. Same as Excel, easily transform that data.
But now the data is a lot more dynamic, right? And it's not just about dashboards.
Sure. Let's take a look at our, this screen shows AP invoices that are sitting in the APIA module.
Yeah.
And this is part of the application here, showing me a list of invoices. And the old paradigm would say, great, now I need to get that out of the system. Can I go run a report job?
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to give me this?
Can you print out Cloud Suite financials for me, please?
Yeah. And I think we can make a case that this application screen
is
your report. Why? Because it's got filters up at the top, right? Filters are just like report parameters. I can say only show me records that meet
Except it's dynamic.
criteria.
It's not like go run it, batch job it. It's just
it's pretty much instant. I can even rearrange the fields or add in new fields. It's very easy on any of these screens to bring in an extra field as long as that field relation is already defined in the system. And if I want to have this data available to me in Excel, if for some reason seeing it and interacting with it on screen doesn't meet my need, I can really quickly get this out as an Excel file.
Awesome. So that dovetails nicely into Act 3, which is, post-transition on FSM. This is going to be sort of a continuing education thing on empowering users to understand. So there's not dynamic. Forget about old Lawson. Think about intuitive. Think about having data dynamically come up and the ability to just drill down. It isn't a dashboard showing you where you should go. It is the transactional data that you can dig into and fix. And so that's an investment, I think, a continuing one. But also there's the ability to bring in data from third-party systems into yours as well. And that can be ongoing. That isn't something that has to be ready on day one. These cubes are flexible. You're not locked in forever.
Yeah, you can certainly, the long tail is bringing in line of business data, maybe from a clinical application or a public sector application, marrying that with financial data and allowing your analytics to draw conclusions from all of this data.
So one of the things that I know that you're very excited about is the Adhoc BI, right? So the ability for just your regular user to go in and not only build their own dashboards and pick graphs. Some people like pies, some people like bars. But also to just get that hot data straight out of the system. And so, talk to me about what I see here.
Yeah, those widgets that we saw on the procurement dashboard, essentially they're powered by this here, which is I can select out. I'm taking a look at one of the finance cubes here,
Okay.
and when I bring up my finance cube, it shows me all the dimensions that are attached to that cube. I can pull out a couple of dimensions and say, this is how I want to graph
X,
out.
Y, yeah.
Yeah, this is how I want to graph out the data, and then the other dimensions basically become my filters. So I can do grouping or filtering of data.
So intuitive, right? I mean, yeah.
It is because the cube was created and designed for this purpose, where the database tables behind the application, they were created to power transactional processing. They weren't built with reporting in mind. This
True.
is.
So let's look at how all these things sort of come together, right? So you can have this project roadmap, sort of with different parts of the organization, working on different parts of 11 consecutively on different pieces, and making this slow transition.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah. We'll bring. Your immediate opportunity is to get hands-on with some of the version 11 technology, get some experience with it, take advantage of these features in your Lawson environment today, and then looking at the applications, the HCM side is what we recommend to do first. That's certainly the more mature mainstream application.
And you can do it modularized.
Yeah, and you can do it modularized, you'll gain a lot of valuable experience that becomes immediately applicable to
FSM,
to the financial side.
So once you've completed everything, you've probably gained a pretty significant competitive advantage, right? Because now you're able to easily extract information to help you manage your business and grow, right? And be dynamic. We also recommend highly that you throw a party.
Yeah.
And that you invite us to that party, because we like parties.
Yeah.
All right, so in summation, this is a very unique opportunity, we feel, not just about the solution, but a solution that's basically a next generation of a solution we're already very familiar with. Friends don't let friends do Big Bang. And the first things that we think should be on everybody's radar, Landmark 11, Global HR, an assessment of your GL structure, and a customization fit gap. And all those are very digestible chunks.
Yeah.
So we know we've run over. Apologize for that. Stout and I like to chat about this. If there are any questions that aren't crazy,
we'll ask our friend Bill Getty off screen.
Yes.
There are many questions, but I'll sort through them. With regards to automation with life events, I guess this goes to GHR. Will there be an option to customize COBRA participants, or should we defer that to Melissa?
So I don't know the answer to that. I know that it's evolving very quickly. I will plug in that there was a benefits webinar that occurred yesterday, and it'll be up on YouTube in a week. Almost all the stuff we covered, there's more information that'll be available via YouTube, and certainly that's one that we'll try to follow up on. I will say that this is where the product is evolving and has been evolving for some time. And if you look at the things they've done, they all make a lot of sense. So if that functionality is not there, it's probably around the corner.
Is there an easy path or no path for version 10 historical data to move from version 10 to FSM Cloud Suite?
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's some options for that.
Yeah, there are some options. There is migration tooling that will map over the GL change and bring in balances and some level of data. The path to Cloud Suite Financials, it's to sum it up, you don't bring over 100% of the transactional data that you have in Lawson today. There is some level of summarizing and mapping and bringing over a subset of data.
So we have a couple more questions, and I think these are all great and applicable to a lot of people, so people want to probably hang on and listen to these. If you're considering reviewing and changing your chart of accounts design, should you wait until later when you ultimately move to Cloud Suite FSM, even though the move to Cloud Suite is a few years away?
I would say that would be a driver for me to move up your move to FSM, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity. I would definitely do them at the same time. I do think that there's a lot of functionality in here, and I think if that is a need for your organization, then you should be looking at it sooner than later.
If you're doing a GL restructure in Lawson, it's probably going to impact a lot of your reporting, and investments that you make in modifying that reporting is not going to be realized when you do the Cloud Suite Financials implementation.
I mean, however, it is something you can do as well.
So a little follow-up to that, and will you have to change the account setup twice if you do it in V10 and then move to Cloud Suite?
So it depends, right? You can definitely migrate what you have in V10 to FSM 11. So you'll only have to change it twice if you have to compromise in V10 because you don't have 14 dimensions and that flexibility. If what V10 offers is right and all you want to do is change like the hierarchy or something, then you won't have to do it twice. I hope that's a straightforward answer.
Okay, and then we currently use smart numbering in our item master to help staff know at a glance if something is in stock and in which warehouse or non-stock. How will that be handled with Cloud Suite SCM?
I would just use Configuration Console to put fields on the item record specifically for that, and change, enhance the screens that people are seeing to make it really obvious, if it's where it is and if it's stock or not.
Yeah.